All right, so today we're going deep into something I think most people don't really think about much.
Yeah.
It's the journey a medication takes from, like the factory
Yeah.
all the way to your medicine cabinet.
Right.
We all just kind of pop a pill and trust that it's going to work.
Yeah.
But have you ever wondered how they guarantee that that little tablet is safe and effective after traveling who knows how far?
Well, it's a pretty fascinating journey and surprisingly intricate. The FDA has an entire set of regulations called 21 CFR Part 211 to ensure just that. And today we're going to be focusing on Subpart H, which covers the holding and distribution of pharmaceutical products.
Okay, so we're not talking about the actual, science of how the drug is made,
Yeah,
but more like the logistics of how it's kept safe once it's ready to go.
exactly.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
We've got excerpts from the actual Code of Federal Regulations, some research papers on supply chain security, and even some training materials that are used by people working in pharmaceutical warehouses and distribution centers.
Ooh, behind-the-scenes stuff. I like it. Let's start with where these medications hang out before they hit the road. The warehouse.
Right.
Now, I am picturing rows and rows of boxes. Maybe a forklift buzzing around. Not exactly thrilling, right?
You'd think so. But even those warehouses are governed by strict regulations. Section 2, 11.142 is all about warehousing procedures. And it's surprisingly detailed. They control everything. Temperature, humidity, ventilation, even the lighting.
Wait, hold up. There are rules about lighting.
Absolutely.
Seriously.
It's all about being able to properly inspect the medications. You need good lighting to be able to spot tiny issues, like cracks in containers or subtle discoloration that could indicate a problem.
Wow. I never would have thought about that. So it's not just about keeping the lights on. It's about ensuring the environment is pristine enough to maintain the medication's quality.
Precisely. And speaking of maintaining quality, let's talk about how those medications move from the warehouse out into the world.
Okay.
That's where things get really interesting.
Yeah. I always wondered how they keep track of every single bottle as it travels from the factory to, let's say, my local pharmacy. It's like a logistical mind boggler.
Well, get ready to be impressed. Section 2, 11.1, 50 mandates incredibly detailed distribution records. We're talking lot numbers, shipping dates, destinations, you name it. Think of it as a medication's passport with stamps for every stop it makes.
Oh, wow. Okay, so every bottle has its own travel itinerary, basically.
Yeah.
But why go to all that trouble?
Because if there's ever an issue, let's say a recall, those records allow them to trace the affected product back to its source with pinpoint accuracy.
Okay, that makes sense. But it must be a nightmare to manage all that data.
It definitely requires sophisticated systems, but the payoff is huge. In a recall situation, being able to quickly identify and retrieve the affected batches minimizes disruption while ensuring patient safety.
I see. Okay, so we've got the warehouse and the intricate tracking system. Well, what about the actual journey itself? I imagine there are rules about how those medications are transported too, right?
You bet. Think about it. Temperature fluctuations, exposure to light, even vibrations during transport can all affect the stability and effectiveness of medications.
Yeah, that's true. I've seen those keep refrigerated stickers on some medications. Makes you wonder how they manage that on a larger scale.
It's quite the operation. Maintaining the cold chain, as they call it, for temperature-sensitive medications is crucial. It involves specialized packaging refrigerated trucks and constant monitoring throughout the journey.
Wow. So there's like a whole hidden world of logistics
Yeah.
behind something as simple as picking up a prescription at the pharmacy.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg. We haven't even touched on the procedures for handling returns or expired medications, which are also strictly regulated.
It sounds like every step in the process, from warehouse to distribution, is designed with patient safety in mind.
Absolutely. These regulations might seem incredibly detailed, but they all serve a critical purpose: to ensure that the medications you receive are safe, effective, and haven't been compromised in any way during their journey to you.
Okay, I'm officially blown away. I'm starting to understand why those tiny pills come with such a big responsibility. But now I'm wondering, with all these checks and balances, does anything ever go wrong? And what happens when it does?
Well, even with the most robust systems, things can happen. But that's where the FDA's enforcement actions come in. They have a whole arsenal of tools to address problems, from warning letters to facility inspections, and even the power to suspend a company's manufacturing license.
Whoa, serious consequences. So there's real accountability built into the system.
Absolutely. The FDA doesn't mess around when it comes to patient safety. And remember those detailed distribution records we talked about? They're crucial in a recall situation. Imagine trying to track down thousands of bottles of medication without that information. It would be like finding a needle in a haystack.
Yikes. Yeah. Not a good scenario. So it sounds like those records aren't just bureaucratic paperwork. They're actually a vital tool for protecting public health.
Exactly, and that's just one example of how these regulations, as complex as they might seem, are ultimately designed to protect you, the patient.
It's funny when I think about all the medications I've taken over the years. I never really considered all the effort that went into ensuring they were safe and effective.
Yeah,
It's kind of mind-blowing.
it is, and we've only scratched the surface. We haven't even touched on things like the validation of equipment, the
Yeah.
training of personnel, or the rigorous testing that goes into verifying the quality of each batch of medication.
But hold on, there's more. Seriously, it's like peeling back layers of an onion, each one revealing even more complexity.
Well, think about it. You wouldn't want someone handling your medication who wasn't properly trained, or a machine that wasn't calibrated correctly, right?
No, definitely not. Okay, so training and equipment makes sense. But what about testing? I thought the medications were already tested before they even got to the warehouse.
They are, but remember, we're talking about ensuring quality throughout the entire life cycle of the product. That means ongoing testing. To verify that the medication remains stable and potent even after it's been stored and transported.
Oh, that makes sense. So it's like a continuous quality check to make sure nothing has changed along the way.
Precisely. They conduct all sorts of tests, from checking the physical appearance of the tablets to analyzing their chemical composition. They even do things like dissolution testing to make sure the medication breaks down properly in your stomach.
Wow. It's incredible how much science goes into every step of the process.
Mhm.
And I'm guessing there are strict regulations governing those tests too, right?
You bet. The FDA has specific guidelines for everything. The types of tests that need to be performed, the equipment that should be used, and even the qualifications of the people conducting those tests. It's all about ensuring accuracy and reliability.
I'm starting to see a pattern here. Everything in the pharmaceutical world seems to be regulated down to the smallest detail.
And for good reason, the stakes are incredibly high when it comes to medications. Even a seemingly minor error could have serious consequences for patients.
That's true. Okay, so we've covered warehousing, distribution, testing. Is there anything else we need to know about this intricate web of pharmaceutical regulations?
Well, we've focused mainly on the U.S. regulations so far. But keep in mind the pharmaceutical industry is global. Medications are manufactured and distributed all over the world, which means there's a whole other layer of complexity. When it comes to international regulations and harmonization,
International regulations. That sounds like a recipe for a bureaucratic nightmare.
it can be challenging, but thankfully there are organizations like the International Council for Harmonization of Technical Requirements for Pharmaceuticals for Human Use, or ICH for short. They work to develop harmonized guidelines that are accepted by regulatory authorities in multiple countries.
So it's like a global effort to streamline the process
Yeah.
and ensure consistent standards of quality and safety.
Exactly. It's all about making sure that no matter where a medication is manufactured or distributed, it meets the same high standards to protect patients worldwide.
This is all so fascinating. I never realized how much goes on behind the scenes to ensure that those medications we rely on are safe and effective. But I have to admit, it also seems incredibly daunting. How do pharmaceutical companies even keep up with all these evolving regulations and global standards?
It's definitely a challenge, but the industry is constantly adapting and innovating. Companies invest heavily in quality assurance programs, regulatory expertise, and cutting-edge technologies to stay ahead of the curve.
It sounds like a continuous learning process, always driving for improvement.
Absolutely. And it's not just about complying with regulations. Many companies go above and beyond the minimum requirements, constantly seeking ways to enhance their processes and deliver even higher levels of quality and safety.
That's good to hear. So it's not just about avoiding penalties. It's about a genuine commitment to excellence.
Precisely. At the end of the day, it's all about ensuring that patients have access to medications that are safe, effective, and reliable. And that's a goal everyone can get behind.
Well, this deep dive has definitely given me a newfound appreciation for the complexities of pharmaceutical manufacturing. It's clear that there's a whole lot more going on behind those little pills than most of us realize. But before we wrap up, I have one last question. With all this focus on regulations and procedures, does that ever feel like the human element gets lost in the mix?
That's a great question, and I'm glad you brought it up, because it's easy to get caught up in the technicalities and lose sight of the human impact. Behind all those regulations and procedures are real people who are passionate about making a difference. They're scientists, engineers, quality control specialists, pharmacists, and countless others who are dedicated to ensuring the safety and effectiveness of the medications we rely on.
So it's not just about following rules blindly. It's about people using their expertise and judgment to make decisions that ultimately impact patient lives.
Exactly. And it's not just the people working within the pharmaceutical industry. There are also the healthcare providers who prescribe and administer those medications, the researchers who develop new treatments, and most importantly, the patients themselves.
That's true. We often think of patients as passive recipients of healthcare, but they're increasingly becoming active participants in their own treatment.
Absolutely. Patients are more informed than ever before. They're asking questions, researching their options, and demanding a greater say in their healthcare
And
decisions.
that's a good thing, right?
It is. This shift toward patient empowerment is transforming the healthcare landscape. It's forcing pharmaceutical companies to be more transparent, to listen to patient concerns,
Hmm.
and to develop medications that truly meet patient needs.
It's amazing to think about how all these different stakeholders, from scientists to patients, are connected by this shared goal of improving health outcomes.
It's a complex web of relationships, but ultimately it's all driven by a common purpose: to alleviate suffering, to extend life, and to enhance the well-being of individuals and communities around the world.
This deep dive has really opened my eyes to the vast and intricate world of pharmaceutical manufacturing. I'm not sure I'll ever look at my medicine cabinet the same way again.
And that's the point. We want you to feel informed, empowered, and confident in the medications you take, knowing that behind those little pills is a network of dedicated individuals working tirelessly to ensure your safety and well-being.
I have to say, this has been an incredibly insightful journey. It's clear that there's a whole lot more to pharmaceutical manufacturing than meets the eye. It's a testament to human ingenuity, scientific rigor, and a shared commitment to improving global health.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So to all our listeners out there, next time you reach for that bottle of medication, take a moment to appreciate the complex journey it took to get there. And remember, stay curious, stay informed, and keep asking questions.
Until next time, stay healthy and keep diving deep.